No, I shouldn't have stopped it. All right. So wait, I'm gonna. All right. So hey, this is it's JONNYLAND Live on the JONNYLAND podcast. It's me, Johnny B. It's Friday, April 7th, and we're here in the JONNYLAND studios. This is the first real podcast episode, so to speak, even though it's not broadcast live. I'm recording this and just making sure it all sounds nice. And with me in the studio, ahead of our trip to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn tonight, my old friend from Roger Williams College, a drummer himself, Mr. Zildjian, Jim McGathey. Thanks for coming down to see us, Jim.
Oh, you're welcome, John.
All right,
My pleasure.
We're in the studio that we'll paint a picture for you. We have on the big screen, we have some vintage Journey concert footage happening from 1981. They're about to kick off a show in Houston here. This is like one of their pinnacle concerts. It was MTV's first broadcast concert. So it's a pretty famous thing. It was marketed commercially on DVD and CD and everything, and it's kind of great to see Neil Schon on guitar, Ross Valerie on bass. Newcomer at the time, Jonathan Cain behind the keys, and Steve Smith, of course, playing the drums. He had replaced Ainsley Dunbar, excuse me, a couple albums earlier. And Steve Perry fronting the band, as usual. And the thing with Journey is that as they celebrate something like their 42nd year together this year, they're about to be inducted tonight into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, along with the likes of Joan Baez, Tupac Shakur, Yes, ELO, Pearl Jam, and Nile Rodgers is getting sort of an achievement award for his life of excellence in music. So there's great many things happening as far as the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The biggest question that sort of was surfacing over the last several months and weeks once Journey got inducted, and by the way, they were nominated for this class by the popular fan ballot. The fans basically said, put Journey in the Hall of Fame, and they won. They won the fan ballot. So with all the criteria that the bands have to meet in order to have eligibility to be in the Hall of Fame, off the top of my head, I can't remember. Maybe you know some things as far as the criteria. Something like 25 years since their first album.
25 years from the original release.
Of the first album.
Yep.
All right. So, and definitely that's, they've certainly met that. Anyway, one of the biggest issues is because of Journey's kind of tumultuous history in the mid 80s and through present day. For those of you who aren't in the know, and I'm really spending most of the time talking about Journey because basically we're going to this show because Journey got inducted. I mean, all props and respect to bands like Pearl Jam and Yes and ELO for their contributions to music. I'm not taking anything away from that. But I'm a huge 80s music guy. I'm a huge Journey fan. You know that. You broke me into the Frontiers and Beyond VHS tape there in Unit 2 when we were wearing the tape down and writing down the counter placement numbers for Steve's drum solo. So I blame you for a lot of things.
It's just too bad this wasn't out on VHS at the time. We had to wait for this one. This is worth waiting for.
If you remember, the Frontiers and Beyond, like the last 45 minutes of that tape was all concert. It was all like JFK Stadium in Philly, and then the Eric Severide's lilting tone voiceover about the modern day.
Was that
restaurant.
the last show of the tour? Maybe even.
It might have been.
Yeah.
The way that they were hyping it up.
I remember Steve Smith having he had a bottle of champagne.
Yeah.
He was warming up backstage,
Yep,
and they said,
yep.
"All right, time to go."
And
he brought his bottle with him.
And he walked it out. And now,
why not?
I don't think at this point in his life and career, I don't think you'd see him walking around with a bottle of champagne.
No.
But one thing that I've always wanted to know is what the hell is the tattoo on his right shoulder?
Oh yeah, I think that's his daughter. I think that's his daughter's name.
Because it's like a circular looking thing. For half a second, I thought maybe it was one of the Journey logos, one of the scarabs or something. But
yeah, I think it's his daughter's name.
Hey,
script.
Hey, you know what? When I see him next, I'll ask him.
Yeah, you should do that.
I keep meaning to do it, but then I get caught up in all this other business, and then it's just here, sign the drum head, and if you want my photos, I'll send you the photos.
Captivated by the tight jeans that Neil Schon's wearing.
Right?
Here.
Can you see
Jordache? It must have been Jordache.
I thought you were saying it must have been Jewish, because you could tell that too. Look, Steve,
they all had the tight jeans
Steve,
and the Nike Cortez sneakers.
And Steve, I think, is wearing shorts behind the drums. You can't really say. And there's Perry with his tails.
Yeah.
But and Steve Smith rocking the Hanes His Way white undershirt.
Yeah.
Dressing up for the event.
Yeah. And they could get away with it like that.
Yeah,
then,
why not?
Look at that. It's all about the music, man. It's all about the music.
And no, he's wearing jeans. All right. And Neil sporting the MTV T-shirt because it's on MTV. But so what I wanted to say about the sort of the Journey history, the journey of Journey, after the '83 Frontiers album, there was sort of this window of a few years where there were all these riffs. The deal, and Steve Perry was taking a lot more creative control of the band, and he wanted to go kind of like with a different sound, and he wound up saying to bassist Ross Valerie and Steve Smith, we kind of don't really need you anymore. And even though they both played a couple of songs, that's the Baywatch theme, by the way.
Yeah.
And
Jimmy Jamison.
Yeah, who's recently passed away.
Yeah. Great singer.
It's a ringtone, but I'm just going to disregard it because I know who it is. It's Lee. So you just probably say, I'm on my way. And, wait. Hello, I just wanted to tell you I'm on the way. So I'll see you soon. Right. Okay, thank you.
It's considerate.
Yeah. So anyway, interrupted my journey of Journey. Steve Smith and Ross Valerie summarily got dismissed from the band. They were replaced with bass player Randy Jackson and a drummer named Mike Baird. And then they put out the Raised on Radio album, and which was well received. It did a good job, but there was a markedly different sound to the band and to their songs. They started doing heavy synth stuff with John. They all got perms. They were using drum machines, and it was just a different sound. I like the album. Steve Smith plays on a handful of the songs. There's 11 or 12 songs, and it's a good sound, but it's not the Journey sound. So Journey kind of then faded away after the Raised on Radio tour, and Steve Perry was doing his solo things, and the band members basically were doing their solo things. And then in '96, they kind of reunited, and they put out the Trial by Fire album, which was their shot at a reunion, which was great because everybody had been saying, we miss Journey, we want to see that classic lineup, and here it now was. So this was sort of the beginning of a resurgence in the Journey fan base, and right out of the box they released When You Love a Woman as a single, and it was nominated for a Grammy Award. And it's something that Journey had never happened before.
It's true.
So they were really, it was a great thing. So the natural progression of things was to tour. Stop talking so much, Jim. The natural progression was to tour, and everybody was on board for doing it. So Steve Perry does his, he starts doing his pre-tour working out kind of thing. He gets this hip pain or whatever. This is stuff of legend, stuff of behind the music, whatever, and I'm just kind of encapsulating it. And he realized that he needed to have hip replacement surgery, and it was a big deal.
I heard additionally he was diagnosed with some sort of degenerative bone disease, but I don't know.
That could have been part and parcel of the hip thing. But so the other guys in the band basically were kind of needling him to say, all right, so you're going to get the surgery? You're going to get the surgery? What's the deal? And Steve Perry kind of took offense to it and said, listen, this is major surgery, and you can't basically force me to do this. I got to make some decisions and choices, whatever, and I get it. But John and Neil and Ross, they were all basically saying, well, we want to play, dude. And if you're not going to strap it on and get out here, we're going to find somebody else to sing.
Yeah, that's tough. That's a tough thing.
And it's a really hard choice to then have to make, because if you have a band like Journey and his voice is associated with Journey, he's the voice. And he basically said, fuck you guys. I'm taking my time. So I guess I got to answer that.
Jimmy Jamison stepped in for the audition.
You could vamp for a minute.
And yeah.
Yes. Okay, gotta go. Wow. All right, so here we are back. Sorry about that.
You know what you need to do is you need to bring this setup down to Newport, and we can do it on the beach.
We're going to do it on the beach. We're going to do it on the beach.
And we can play the Baywatch theme in the background.
Exactly. So, I don't even know.
Oh, look at all the stuff you got here.
Yeah, look.
Let's see some of the Live in Tokyo, 1981.
Okay, there we go.
Talk about gold dust.
Yeah, so we got some old concert stuff playing in the background here as we go through this. So they had this reunion, and Perry says basically, "Screw you guys. I'm getting surgery when I want, how I want," and literally they go separate ways. And they held these auditions. They had the singer named Steve Augeri who comes in and picks up the microphone, does a really good job. I think he did a few albums with him. He toured with him. And originally, I had heard that he didn't get the gig because he looked and sounded too much like Steve Perry. It was like Steve Perry with a perm. So
it was eerie.
Yeah, but
watching them.
But it was
because he was so close to the real McCoy,
and it worked. He
kind of like, you almost thought you were in this kind of like Las Vegas Twilight thing.
Yeah,
like tribute.
But it worked because the crowds came, the album sold.
He's great.
After a little more time, I get a couple albums. I think got sort of a throat thing, and he had to step away.
I saw them. I can't remember the year, but and you could tell it was towards the tail end of his tenure in the band, and they were playing a lot of older material, and
like The Escape and The Departure. And
before
that,
really? Even pre.
Oh.
And he would for the opening couple numbers he was playing a little bit of guitar, strangely enough, and he was kind of standing side stage, not singing, and it was just. You look at him and you could tell just like, oh yeah, this guy's
he's going out.
He's not long for this band.
I mean,
you can almost tell. It was weird.
He seemed to enjoy everything that he was doing with the band, and it was really cool. But so again, they part. They had another fill-in guy for like 5 minutes. Jeff Scott Soto. Didn't make an album with him. They did some shows, whatever, and then it kind of just fizzled away again. And again, this is just sort of rehashing, and I really want to get to the Hall of Fame business. But so fast forward a little bit, Neil Schon is surfing the net, literally. He's playing around at all hours of the night, trying to find a singer. Steve Smith, by the way, after the reunion thing, after the trial by fire thing kind of fractured, he said, "All right, guys, I'm out of here. I have vital information. I have session stuff. I have jazz all over the place, steps ahead."
Busy guy.
Hugely, and you would know real quick,
Busy guy.
How would you know that?
in my short time working with him, when I was working artist relations for the Zildjian family, and I had the honor and the privilege of hitting the road with Steve for I was better part of 10 days doing a clinic tour. So Steve did a lot of drum clinics. Promotional.
Still does.
Still does. And this was still, I wouldn't say it was the heyday of drum clinics, but it was when the clinic scene was fairly active with stores, and so I went all over the country with Steve.
Was this kind of before the age of the drum fantasy camps now that are going on all the time with Steve and Dave Weckl and
I think those were probably in the works, if not here and there, but it was still at a time where the shop owners, for a big name like Steve Smith, the shop owners would have him come in and do a clinic, and it would hopefully generate sales and a lot of buzz and goodwill.
Because you figure if Steve is showing up somewhere, I mean, he's the face behind Zildjian and Sonar Drums and all that stuff. Real quick, tell the story that you told me of you were in an airport, and because you're laughing, you know what I'm talking about. And the guy that came up, and because Steve was wearing a Zildjian jacket, or you were wearing it, or something. Tell that story with the whole Neil Peart thing.
Yeah, we were on our way. I think that I don't know where we were heading to, maybe Denver that morning. But Steve was wearing his Zildjian. They had a varsity jacket, which was green and dark green sleeves and green wool. It was a wool varsity jacket proper, and it had the embroidered
Thanks,
Zildjian.
thanks for not getting me one. By the way.
I don't think they make them anymore.
Probably not. Thanks for stealing Steve's from me.
I wonder if Steve still has his.
Probably not.
It had the gold embroidered trademark on the back, and we were in the Starbucks line getting coffee to get our start on the day and get ready for our flight. And this guy behind us in line said, "Oh, are you a drummer?" to Steve, and or no, he said to me. I think he said to me, "Are you a drummer?" And I said, "No, not really, but this gentleman is." The guy standing in front of me, he sure
Steve
is a
under the
drummer.
bus, right?
Yeah, and the guy said, "Oh yeah," and Steve turns around at that point and it's kind of like, "Oh yeah, nice to meet you." Yeah, and Steve goes, "Are you a drummer?" And the guy's like, "No, but I'll tell you what. If I was a drummer, if I could come back in my next lifetime and be a drummer, I'd be Neil Peart."
Oh.
To which Steve looks at me, just wide-eyed,
Kind
like,
of nods his head.
yeah, okay. and
As Steve would do.
I remember Steve on that flight writing his little blog as he was doing that clinic tour. He was writing a blog for the Hudson Music guys, and he wrote about that incident, shall we say?
That's funny. It's just such a great story because if you're a drummer at all, how do Steve is so. He's the one of the most recognizable professional drummers. I think that if anybody is serious about playing the drums, Steve Smith now certainly is kind of like the Yoda of drummers.
He's definitely achieved that status for sure.
So, yet again to be sidetracked, Neil Schon sitting in front of his computer surfing the web. He's trying to find another singer. This is 2007 now, 2006, 7, 8-ish, whatever, and he comes across this dude singing in a club in the Philippines, singing Journey covers, and Neil has this revelation that says, "Oh my God, this is the guy." He calls John Kane. He says, "You got to see this guy," and so, thus became the story of Arnel Pineda, who is now the current singer for Journey, and he also does a really good job.
Yeah,
he's electrified on stage.
Total professional.
He can sing the songs. He's professional. He's friendly. The fans love him. It also opened up a huge new demographic with the Filipino community. Yeah. They played in Manila a bunch of years ago. It was like the first time that he could go back. I mean, the guy was living literally on the streets, stealing food from dumpsters. I mean, the life of a total homeless.
Everybody loves that story, right? Rags to riches story. It's just
there's nothing better. And so they made a documentary about that, by the way. So for the past 10 years, 11 years, or whatever it is now, Arnel's been singing. So now here we are, and Journey's inducted into the Hall of Fame tonight with these other great artists. And the question on everybody's mind and mouth was, is Steve Perry going to show up? Is Steve Perry going to sing with the band? The last time Steve Perry sang with Journey as that classic Escape Frontiers lineup was in 1983. Unless I'm wrong with something. They were all together in 2005 for the Rock Walk of Fame. They got their star. Steve didn't sing at that performance that night, but he was there. So the question was, look, it's the Hall of Fame. Steve has to show up. And everybody would say, if you don't show up, Steve, it's the biggest FU to the fans. How do you get away? I mean, how do you not? And he just made one little acknowledgement early back in December. He was humbled. He's appreciative, blah, blah, blah. A couple days back, a week back, it comes through, Steve is going to be there. And John Kane actually was doing an interview, and he kind of let it slip. It'll be great to see Steve again after all these years. And so everybody was like, oh, so Steve is going to be there. Oh, my God. So if he's going to be there, maybe he'll sing. So it shifted from, okay, we know he's going to be there. Now is he going to sing?
Yeah.
Greg Raleigh,
big question.
The original keyboard player and vocalist for Journey. And my favorite song in his tenure is Just the Same Way off the Captured album. You know that. Great song. One of the best live albums of any band that I've ever heard, Captured. I urge anybody to go and get that. Greg Raleigh was recently interviewed, and he said, for the fans, Steve really should sing. And so earlier this afternoon, as I'm all jacked up, getting ready to have this night with you and Lee and my friend Becky, and we're all going to just be rocking out for 6 mini concerts plus a jam at the end and God only knows what else. My friend, the comedian from Massachusetts, Robert Kelly, he sends me a text showing me basically just a picture of Steve Perry and the news blurb, it turns out, from TMZ. So there's that wonderment, that initial head scratch, but you want to believe it because it says, believe this, Steve Perry is going to sing with the band. What do you think?
Well, I think it'll be an awesome thing if he is there, and he does certainly perform.
Assume he's there.
With the band.
Assume he's there.
Assume he's there.
Right?
Yeah.
How do you want it to go down? How do you see it happening?
Well, I always try to.
Don't mince words.
I don't know. I don't know if it's my my experiences working with musicians and just maybe certain empathy I have
for who?
For them, for the musicians.
Okay.
There's an old story that goes about I think it was Louis Bellson told another musician, another drummer, what is it with all this, the autographs and the fan stuff and doing it, and Louis just like, listen, man, you don't owe them anything more than a good night's performance. That's it. And I kind of think along those lines, like Steve Perry certainly doesn't owe it to the fans. As much as Greg Raleigh might seem that's the perception of things.
I think there's like 20,000 people at the Barclays Center that want to beat the shit out of you for saying that.
No, he certainly doesn't owe anybody anything. The guy.
I get what you're saying.
The guy sacrificed. I assume. I don't know him. I've never met him, but I assume he sacrificed the better part of his life, performing, making music for other people's pleasure. And I think if it was me, I'd want to be there. I'd want to be involved with it because, hey, this is like the biggest honor that you could receive, really.
Bigger than the Rock Walk, I would say.
Bigger than the Rock Walk, for sure.
Yeah.
Which he was at. So, I think it's plausible that he'll be there, but whether he performs or not.
Let's assume he's there because
Okay.
he shows up at the Rock Walk and he snubs that performance for whatever his reasons
Yeah,
are.
he was not there that night because I remember everybody else, just about everybody else was.
So, for whatever his reasons are, he doesn't attend and really kind of lets people down there. This is a bigger deal. It's a bigger performance. It's a bigger recognition. It's a bigger celebration, I think, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You're in there with some of these landmark genius innovators of music history on all kinds of levels.
Sure.
So from a fan's perspective, if you know he's going to be there, obviously you're going to say, how does Steve Perry show up with Journey and not sing Don't Stop Believin'?
Maybe he could stand there and shake a tambourine. I don't know.
But do you think the fans would stand for that?
Maybe he'll play the drums.
Oh, yeah. Do you think Steve would stand for that? Steve is, listen, did I show you the picture of Ainsley Dunbar doing sound check on Steve's kit yesterday?
No,
I got to show you that.
I got to see that.
But I mean, it's great. It's like everybody's coming together. Bury the Hatchet. Greg Raleigh was, when he left the band, he was like, good luck with Steve Perry, dudes.
I can tell you this: Ainsley Dunbar, sweetheart of a guy, nice guy, but he is somebody that if he wasn't invited to this Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, being a member of Journey for a short amount of time, significant member, he would probably be insulted.
I would think.
But I don't know if Steve Perry feels the same way.
I don't. Well, look at it this way:
Yeah.
if it wasn't for Journey, who would Steve Perry be?
Well, that's true. I mean, I think the guy he's probably so far detached from it now, and lives
you really
his life.
think so? Do you think that there's anywhere that Steve Perry goes now where people don't ask him for an autograph, people don't ask for a picture,
Oh, sure.
or people don't ask him, will you ever get back together with the band? You should have seen, holy shit, you should have seen the Twitter feed, Neil Sean's Twitter feed,
Oh, God.
of which I was a heavy participant, because the band, they follow me now, which is effing amazing. But all these people would be firing notes off to Neil Sean saying, is Steve coming? Is Steve coming? You guys got to lighten up and let Steve come. everybody wants Steve to be there. The band is
it's
couldn't
not
be more welcoming.
It's not like it was it last year with Chicago and Peter Cetera.
Well,
It's not the same thing in any way, shape, or form. There was a lot of bitterness. I don't think that's the same case here with the Journey thing. I don't think there's the same bitterness and whatnot. But you know, I do think so much time has passed, and you know, for him to, if he goes, if he's there tonight and he performs or whatever, he's doing it for himself, and that's okay.
Do you think it'd be the kind of thing? I understand that. Do you think it'd be the kind of thing where he would say, after tonight, if he sings "Don't Stop Believing," because from what I understand, they're doing Lights, Separate Ways, and "Don't Stop Believing." Although Raleigh said in an interview he was going to be singing a song with the band, which I can only assume would be just the same way.
No chain reaction.
I don't know, chain reaction. Or
That was the
Rubicon.
That was the nugget that I got to see at the House of Blues on Sunset Boulevard that night after the Rock Walk induction. It was Steve Smith playing Chain Reaction. That was pretty awesome. I don't know if they play. Are they playing that on this tour this time around?
There's dates that they're playing where they're doing sides A and B of both Escape and Frontiers.
Oh my God!
So you got to when's the last time any of those guys played Rubicon or Frontiers?
I've died and gone to 80s heaven.
Or Edge of the Blade. I love Edge of the Blade, and Back Talk. But listen, we're going
to make a
cuts,
killing in Japan. I'm telling you.
But again, if Steve shows up and if Steve sings, do you think he'd be doing it because he wants to give that to the fans, or do you think he'd be doing it because then he could say, okay, I came, I sang, leave me the F alone?
I think in between that, I think he probably would like to stand up and be recognized and be part of it, because he was obviously a very significant part of the band, if not maybe even the most significant.
I would tend to agree.
Yeah, I mean, I'll cross that line.
All those San Francisco ball games he goes to, where there's always video of him standing in the crowd, singing along with "Don't Stop Believing." So I can't imagine that he doesn't have a sweet spot in his heart, in his life, for the song, the band, the memories. I mean, "Don't Stop Believing" is what the most downloaded digital song in history.
I mean, by all accounts, he could do this tonight. He could go to the ceremonies and be recognized and be up there with his former bandmates and have a good time, enjoy himself.
Yeah.
That's really what it's about too. Like those guys, they're up there to bask in it, bask in the glory of what they've done, look back on what they've done and been like, wow, we did this. This is amazing. And but I think it does beg a lot of questions.
How do you see it happening? How do you see the thing happening where he comes out and, does he say anything, or does he just come out and start singing like, okay, shut up, I'm here to sing, let it happen?
I just wouldn't want to be the producer of this thing.
Well,
making sure all the lighting cues are on, and roll tape for HBO.
Now we talked about this, and we kind of superimposed Superman Shep Gordon into this mix had he been Steve's manager.
Yeah.
And here the phone call with Steve and Shep. Hi, Steve. It's Shep. Listen, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame thing is coming up. Are you going? Yeah, I think I'm going to go. I'm not too sure. Yeah, you better go.
It's 2 tokens.
Yeah.
Maybe 3.
It's 2 favor tokens. But I'm going to go, and I just don't feel like singing. Yeah, Steve, you got to sing. If you don't sing, you're going to be publicly scrutinized for the rest of your life. Sing and shut up, or shut up and sing, or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. I just I
gotta
don't
go
see
by.
it that way. I don't see it that way. I think,
Gun to your head, is Steve Perry singing tonight or not?
Oof, flip a coin.
Flip a coin.
Flip a coin.
I was holding a gun to your head.
It's 50-50. It's 50-50.
50-50.
Yeah, sure.
Think? All right. Right here now.
60-40, 70-30.
Do you have an impression of whether he's going to sing or not? Or are you leaning in a direction? Are you inclined to say he's going to sing or he's not going to sing?
Oh,
What would be your take based on plus the little nugget from TMZ that we just saw?
I could tell you what I'd like to see personally.
Okay, so as a fan, what do you want to see happen?
Sure, I'd love to see him get up there and be recognized and say some words.
Well,
I'd like to hear some heartfelt kind of.
Have you ever seen Journey with Steve Perry?
No, never.
Have you ever seen Steve Perry perform?
Missed my opportunities.
Yeah, me too.
I don't remember seeing Steve Perry. No.
Never once.
No.
So
It'd be pretty amazing.
So
to see him.
So what's the draw from the perspective of the event itself? Not just the fact that we're hanging out and it's great to see you after. I mean, I've only seen you once before, before we left college, and then I saw you like a year and a half ago up in Providence, and before that it was in the early 90s last time our paths crossed. But listen, the drummers collective, so to speak, remains connected.
Absolutely.
It's a connected collective. So I'm fucking thrilled to death that you're here.
I'm thrilled to see Steve Smith get up there.
Yeah, I mean
that's.
And he just won 3 more awards through Modern Drummer. Did you know? 3 more Readers Poll awards.
He's
guy
on the board, isn't he?
He probably owns the company.
I think he does.
Yeah. Listen.
Not that he doesn't deserve it.
Can you tell I'm a fan? I mean, if you just look around my room here, it's the shrine of Smith.
I think for a band like Journey, certainly, and Yes, for that matter, that never been the critics. I mean, these guys got pasted by the critics all throughout their career.
Sellouts,
corporate rock, you name it, and excuse me, never recognized for their musicianship, and their obvious popularity. I mean, they can obviously write great songs.
Yeah,
I mean, the numbers don't lie on that,
and that's why tonight is for them.
Yeah, it is for them, and I hope Steve Perry's there. I hope he's there for himself.
I'm telling you, he's going to be there.
I'm telling. Probably the worst thing, he probably wouldn't be there if somebody told him, "Hey man, you have to be there. Like you're obliged to be here."
You got to think that his manager, his whatever his close circle is saying, Steve, how you got to be there. You can't not be at I mean, the idiot Van Halen brothers that don't show up when they get inducted. So it's Sammy and Mikey that show up. Great, God bless them. That's why I love those two guys. But Alex and Eddie, morons. And I'm a huge Van Halen fan. If you're nominated to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it really does it even get better than that awards wise? Who gives a shit about
it? Doesn't
about your Grammy winners or whatever?
I'd say it's the Academy Awards of
music.
Rock and roll
Absolutely.
and music, right?
You don't snub that.
Yeah. No,
but, and that's what, in my opinion, it makes Sammy Hagar a stand-up guy times 100 over these other guys.
I guess you just tell Steve Perry not to be a Marlon Brando.
I think
show.
Here's my take on it. Not that anybody asked, but my take is that I know he's going to be there. I feel it in my friggin' bones. He's there. He's probably not there right now.
Yeah, I asked you earlier. Where do you think he's staying?
He's probably staying at a Best Western in Hackensack.
Far away from all the people and the madness as possible.
He's getting an Uber to take him over to the Barclays Center, and he's using the alias Peter Fitznicentite.
He'll show up at the last minute.
Exactly, like a friggin' diva. And he'll show up and be like...
5 minutes to go.
But I'll tell you one thing. As soon as he walks out on that stage, you're going to feel that...
Oh, the place will
that
erupt.
Arena is going to go insane.
What was the story you were telling me earlier about the jacket, the tuxedo, the red tail?
Oh yeah, so in '94 he's promoting his solo album, For the Love of Strange Medicine. Really good album, and he goes on tour. And I happen to see him at the Beacon Theater in New York City. I'm in the 7th row. It's a really great show. Holy hormones in the audience, Batman. I mean, everywhere you look, it could have been a free-for-all. It probably was, just not for me. So halfway through his set, he's sprinkling Journey songs through his solo stuff, and he's in this extended riff with the audience, and he's talking about, hey, it's been a long time, it's good to see you, I'm back in New York, and all that stuff. And from the rafters, they lower one of his old maroon and black tuxedo tail jackets. And I swear that, I mean, the place was deafening.
What was your reaction?
I was actually pretty giddy. I mean, I was a little, ooga. I was like, oh,
It's a jacket on a string
It's-
being lowered from the ceiling. Let's be honest about it.
It was nicely pressed. It was on a hanger. It
Was a
looked,
spotlight on it?
there was a
Of course,
spotlight,
of course.
But it gets lowered in, and everybody, you hear the shrieking, and even guys next to me are going, oh, shit. And so I'm looking, I was like, all right, that's pretty cool. So then Steve starts talking to the jacket, and he starts, having this one-way conversation, saying to the jacket, like, oh, and how did you get here to New York City? I thought you had retired. I heard you had lost your voice. And then he'd look at the audience. Did you hear the same thing? And everybody, no. And he then seductively, this guy with hair down to his ass at this point, first he makes like a 2-minute show of pulling the scrunchie out of the back of his ponytail. And I mean, no bullshit. He's dangling this thing around like a treat, and the girls are just like seals, like trying to get this thing.
God.
And he gives it to some girl who, of course, swoons and melts and explodes. But then he like caresses the jacket and puts it on one sleeve here, one sleeve here. And then I think from that he goes into Love and Touch and Squeezing, I think is what he did. I have a DVD of the show. But, I mean, literally that segment was 16 minutes or 17 minutes of him in the jacket. But the jacket is like his trademark.
Maybe they'll do that tonight. Maybe he'll
Besides
show
his
up
voice.
with the jacket.
If he shows up in a tail top coat or whatever, if they lower something from the ceiling, I swear I'm going to jump from section 221. I will jump down, run to the stage, and probably get arrested.
I always wonder what items they don't donate them per se, but they put them on loan to the museum,
Right.
for them to put on display.
There's got to be
So
a jacket.
I always wonder what items they. Yeah, maybe I'll let them have the leopard print torn
looking at
T-shirt
it right
from
or
the
a
escape
piece
tour.
of the
Maybe I'll let
glass
them have
bottle
that.
that somebody threw at Neil Sean. Remember when it clipped him
yeah.
in the head, and
Yeah.
then he started playing his song, whatever.
One of the classic
Here's
classic moments.
Listen, and we got to wrap this up. We got to get out of here because it's now 3:40, and we got to get to Brooklyn to see this all happen. But one thing that actually struck me yesterday is nobody's talking about Herbie Herbert.
No, is he still alive?
I don't know.
Oh.
But, he was, last time I saw him was on the Behind the Music, the VH1 Behind the Music.
That's
He
true.
lost a lot of weight.
I'm not
whatever.
sure
And
if he's still around.
I don't know, but if he's around, then I certainly hope that he would be there.
Well,
He was
They'll give a shout out to them.
the founding father
Yeah.
of this band. Him and Neil.
Yeah, they would. I'm sure they would give a shout out to him.
So it just struck me because I was watching Frontiers and Beyond, and there's Herbie and his big blue, and Jolly Herbie and whatever, and I was like, how come nobody said anything about Herbie? Even if if he's passed away, God bless him, but no one's even said, and big shout to Herbie up in heaven or whatever, in roadie heaven. But I just want to say that, I mean, if he's alive, if he's dead, whatever, you got to give props to Herbie Herbert.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because without the
what a juggernaut.
Without Herbie, Journey wouldn't happen, and then Steve Perry would still be somewhere else because Herbie found Steve.
He was their Peter Grant, shall we say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, without Herbie, there's no Journey, there's no Steve Perry, there's no Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, there's no Jim and John sitting here waiting to leave.
That's true. That's true.
So, but as we get ready to head out, real quick, your top 5 favorite Journey tunes, live or studio.
All right, here we go. Top 5.
Doesn't matter what order it's in, unless you want to leave room for number 1.
Boy, that's a tough one. I think off the top of my head, you have to give a shout out to "Don't Stop Believing," of course. I mean, it's such a hallmark song for them. And I tend to think about the more drumistic tunes, of course, that Steve had some great parts written for. I mentioned earlier Chain Reaction. That's a personal favorite. A lot of stuff off of Frontiers.
Separate Ways?
Not so much Separate Ways, even though that you can't deny the bigness of that. After the Fall, especially with the Parents in Risky Business on the soundtrack there. Makes me think of Rebecca De Mornay.
Sure.
But off a departure.
Get off the babysitter, Jim.
I told Steve at one point during that clinic tour, I'm like, man, it really inspired me on Brushes, and I don't laugh, but Walks Like a Lady. That of all the songs that I could have, it could have been an old jazz tune or something, like playing in a rock idiom with Brushes, like a blues number. Down home, dirty, just
Neil said even if he wants to sing that tonight, if Perry wanted to sing that, he's got a guitar tuned to C. Seriously, no bullshit. He's like, if he wants a slow and easy Walks Like a Lady, I'll do it.
I'd hate to be their tech.
But on Captured, that's how Perry intros the song. You want some blues? We got Neil Schon, we got Ross Valerie.
Oh yeah,
and
best.
But yeah,
best.
So you got After the Fall, you got Don't Stop Believin'.
Yeah.
You got Walks Like a Lady.
Yeah, Walks Like a Lady's in there for sure. There's a couple of obscure tracks off of Departure as well, like Someday Soon.
Mm-hmm.
God, there's just so many songs.
You're not gonna go with the standards though. No.
Lovin' You Is Easy off of was that Evolution?
I don't remember.
I think Lovin' You Is Easy.
Tokyo thing we were watching.
And there's a ton of just great songs where, again, Steve Smith playing all that great stuff. That he worked on with Gary Chafee, like all the great linear, but turning that into a really good groove and having it be like completely musical, and really driving the song. And of course, Neil's guitar pyrotechnics, as always.
Well, we're going to listen to a lot of live stuff on the way into the city, but there's a live version of one of my favorite songs, Hopelessly in Love, The Party's Over.
Great song. The beginning of that, the arpeggiated.
It's
kind of
so great.
Yeah.
It's such a great beginning.
How do they think of that? How do they think this stuff up?
It was backstage at Cobo Hall where Neil just came up with it with Steve Perry in like 10 minutes, and it was done. It was amazing. I just read it.
And that's why it's so great.
Yeah. But I got to say, Don't Stop Believin', separate ways. And it took me about 20 years to figure out how I can play Don't Stop Believin'. So I got that.
Not easy.
No, it's not.
Not easy.
And because I play backwards, because I'm left-handed, so my ride cymbal is on the left side instead of on the right, where Steve is right-handed, and he's just going up to here. I'm going across my kit, but whatever. So we have Don't Stop Believin', separate ways. I really like Hopelessly in Love.
Yeah, it's a great song.
I got to go with even something from Trial by Fire.
Sure.
Message of Love is a great song where Neil is on fire, Steve Smith is on fire. I got to say, when I think of you off that album, because it reminds me of some of the people in my life that I've lost.
Yep.
And that song, I think, was probably written with Steve's mother in mind, Steve Perry's mother. But it's hard for me to listen to that song and not feel something in my heart for close people. So I think that's one of the real hallmarks of a Journey tune, like Open Arms or Faithfully. Most people would go right to those love songs. But when I think of you, it's underrated. I'm even going to go into Raised on Radio, and even though it's not a classic lineup song, I'm going to say Suzanne, because I love the rhythm of that song.
Yeah.
And Why Can't This Night Go On Forever? The last song on Raised on Radio, it's perfect for how I'm going to be thinking about tonight. And it buttons everything up, and because the band wrote that for the fans. It's sort of like their thank you to the fans. So now this is the fans saying thank you. So, so here we go. So we're going to head on our way to Brooklyn, to the Barclays Center, to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony, the 32nd annual, whatever it is. Joan Baez, Tupac Shakur, Nile Rodgers, Yes, ELO, Pearl Jam, and I'm going to go on a limb and say our favorite of the inductees, Journey, going to be taking the stage and having a kick-ass time. So any last thoughts, any last words you want to?
Just looking forward to it, man. It's going to be awesome.
Good. If you get a little more excited, I'm going to have to restrain you. You just got to calm the fuck down.
I'm reserving all my energy.
Okay, reserving
it.
Okay, so you're not.
I don't know when they're going to step up. I don't know where they fall in the lineup of things for the evening, but it's going to be sweet.
I don't care. I have too much cocaine in my blood system right now. I have no cocaine in my blood system right now. All right, this is Johnny B. It's live from JONNYLAND. It's the podcast. This was fun. I hope that more than 2 or 3 people listen to this nonsense. Sorry for any technical interruptions and all that other business, but phones ring and things happen. So we'll see you again, or we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for coming down, Jim. I'm glad you're here. And,
you too, man. Thank you.
And a big shout to my favorite Lee and super co-concert conspirator Becky Reiner, who we're meeting in Brooklyn. Yeah, we're going to rock out tonight. So stay tuned for all kinds of good photos and videos, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.